What's up, you guys? It's Kurt Stubbs with the Ohio High School Hoops Around the State podcast. I am here with a guest that many of you will know, and that is Mr. Brandon Pardon from Van Wert Lincolnview fame. Brandon, how are we doing this afternoon?
Kurt, how are you? Doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one. The Lincolnview Lancers, one of my favorite teams from Ohio high school basketball history. So, and I know a lot of people have been very interested in hearing this story, those people that lived it and those people that have just heard about it. So, I guess we'll start with this. I kind of have an idea, but if you tell the listeners kind of what you've been up to since you departed from Lincolnview in 1997.
So I actually originally went to Wright State for 1 year, had a season there, and then I transferred to Bowling Green, playing for Coach Dockage there. Was fortunate enough to go over and play in Europe for 2 years. Played in Nantes, France for a year, and played in Gmünd in Austria for a year. Got married while I was in France. And again, my wife went back over with me to Austria. Retired at the old age of 25. I had a knee injury over there, had surgery. Wanted to go back, but got a little homesick for my wife, and so we moved back and to the Van Wert area. Ended up getting into some sales and actually sold some cars first of all, then got some pharmaceuticals. Now I'm into the surgical line, and moved down to Florida for about 7 years, and then had our kids down there. At least my daughter. My boys were born here in Fort Wayne, where I reside now. We moved back about 5 years ago here in Fort Wayne, and got a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, and then I got a 10-year-old, two boys and a girl.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
Life is good, Kurt.
yeah, I'm sure that's hard to believe for some of our listeners that that you have a 15-year-old at this point. And
Right.
you said you got married. Now, you said your wife, was she from France or you got married in France? Is that what you said?
So it's actually a good story, or I guess, depending if you want to think it's a good. I met my wife at the Elida game my senior year. She was at Wayne Trace.
Okay.
And my high school coach's wife taught English at Wayne Trace. So introduced us between the JV and varsity game while I was shooting around, and well, she was a cute little girl, but I had no idea that I was going to marry her. So it ended up working out really well for me. She's been awesome. I mean, literally, we traveled all over the world together. I got engaged right after I got my contract to France, and literally, she went over there at first, not being married, just wanted to make sure that happened. So we flew her home, and she got everything set up for the wedding. I flew back in December. We got married December 28th, and then we're back at it. So she went back over with me.
So you're another guy on the long list of guys that have outpunted their coverage.
Oh my goodness, it's way. I can't even put. I mean, I can't even exaggerate that enough, brother.
Yeah. So you were obviously a huge part of this whole thing at Lincolnview, but you certainly weren't acting alone. A great group of guys that you graduated with, and I'm sure you still keep in touch with. What are some of the other guys on that team doing now?
So Chad Pollock, our center at the time, went on to Ohio Northern, played a freshman year basketball. He was an All-American offensive lineman there. He's a VP of Aflac Insurance here in kind of the Midwest. Wes Dudgeon was the other, went to Malone. He actually, after Malone, traveled south to Charleston. He teaches anatomy and physiology at the University of Charleston, and does some research for Under Armour. Kyle Rabe he went off, played at Heidelberg a year, and then went to Toledo Med School, went to Columbus for dental school, orthodontist, and then he's out in Tucson, Arizona, runs a couple practices out there. So yeah, that's kind of Matt Owens, another good buddy of mine. He's actually the medical director of St. Rita's in Lima, Ohio. So a lot of MDs in that group. I just sell stuff. And obviously, Frank, I don't want to forget him. Frank is.
Well, we know what Frank's doing.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, but he's still, that's the people that don't know, Frank was a great part of our Lincolnview team, but went on to Defiance and had even a better career as a collegiate player, which I kind of figured he would because of the role he played and on the Lincolnview team. So he's obviously the head coach at LCC, a couple championships there, and struggling a little bit now, but I think they're coming around.
Yeah, he's Brandon's referring to Frank Kill, head coach at LCC, two state championships. Very well dressed individual. Frank Kill, just another fantastic member of that '97 Lincolnview group. So you had mentioned when I did the podcast with Scott Brunswick at St. Henry, you had mentioned a good story that I'll let you share about you were around when they lost their first game as juniors to Van Wert.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough, in my elementary years, obviously playing in that area. Our school team played in like fourth or fifth grade. I played on an all-star team out of Van Wert when I was in sixth grade for Jim Clay and the Killer Bees. It's kind of everybody wanted to be part of that. He did it for many years. A lot of kids played for him. But in that time, when I was in sixth grade, I kind of got involved. It was going to Van Wert's practices because Keith Knopf, who was the head coach at the time, ended up being the varsity assistant with Dockage when I was at Bowling Green. Allowed me to come in and be the ball boy for that team, that Van Wert team, which obviously had Joe Gardner that went on to Toledo, Quincy Cloud, Bebout, Joel Mendrick. I mean, I remember these guys like yesterday. I went to a bunch of games, but obviously the most memorable game was that St. Henry game when they came in there. And again, as a kid and rebounding for a guy like Joey Gardner, and I looked up to these guys. These are my idols as kids, right? You want to be like them. You want to be playing on the same stage. But the atmosphere is probably what I remember the most. I mean, you could not get another person in that gym. I'm pretty sure the fire department was in there, and just to watch the game probably. But yeah, it was just electric. I mean, I can't even put into words. As a kid, like I looked around, like I'm like, this is the stage. I would want to be a part of. You don't even think it's possible, but you've seen that, and that's the first time I really experienced that. So I kind of carried that with me, obviously, move along in my career.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. I've told you this before, but just the fact that St. Henry team that you're referring to, and Scott had told me that that was the first loss he had ever suffered in his athletic career. I mean, I still think about that and what it would be like to play with a group of guys where losing is not something that's acceptable. With that group of guys for sure. And you guys were kind of a lot of the same way eventually. But you mentioned Van Wert. Was there any talk? You end up at Lincolnview, but was there ever any thought or talk about going to Van Wert?
So I grew up at Middle Point, and ultimately, I mean, Lincolnview was where I went to school all the way through. But playing on that Van Wert team for the Killer Bees. Obviously, there was another guy that was involved that was good friends with Coach Knopf that had a son that I played with, and he more or less recruited me. So in that time, coming and seeing that atmosphere, I'm like, I want to be a part of this. Like, you think could be, you can be. This is the school to be at. So, be lying if I told you to ask my parents, hey, I think this is a good decision, and my dad's like, what is wrong with you? Absolutely not. Was a little bummed at first, but it was probably the best decision that my dad ever made for me, or at least one of them. And obviously, it was short-lived for sure. But yeah, thought about it, but fortunate to stay at Lincolnview forever.
You mentioned Middle Point, which is a village, and what was it like growing up in Middle Point?
It was great. I mean, it's even looking back, sometimes I even go back and drive through. It just brings back good memories, but. It was just you're outside, you're playing. My best friend was a basketball goal, and a pitch back with playing baseball. All my childhood buddies are the guys I played high school with. We were always together doing something. Normally playing either basketball in a hayloft at my buddy's farm, or trying to get into the YMCA. But again, you're 6 miles from Van Wert. It's obviously out in the middle of nowhere between Delphos and Van Wert. But it was great. The community was awesome. I mean, that was what I knew. So I didn't really have anything to compare it to. Just a small town kid, just trying to, go to a public education school, which was Lincolnview, which very fortunate to be part of.
Now, does Middle Point, do they have a like a local diner? Like, what's the spot to be at?
So back in the day, they had a place called the Whistle Stop. So ultimately, when I was a kid, they would go to the basketball game, and all the parents, the kids would go back there and play pool, or I think they had a dart board or something like that. There's obviously a bar, a little
Yeah.
carry out, pizza shack, four-way stop. Used to have a little movie place there. Again, I still don't know how that guy stayed alive, but it was short-lived. But that was kind of the gist of it. There wasn't much. There was not much. But we'd ride our bikes up there. I mean, there was a ballpark, and where we played baseball as kids. I mean, it was typical small town.
So, for perspective for people that might not be familiar, like you're talking like Lima and Fort Wayne are probably the two closest, what you would consider a city to there.
Yeah, so I mean, again, when I got to high school, I wanted to go on a date, maybe go to a movie. We had to go to Lima or Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
Same with if we're going out to eat or something. If you don't want McDonald's or you want to, it's, you're leaving town. Which again, it's not far, but for being from where I'm from, it wasn't bad. It really wasn't. But yeah, you had to go either one of those.
So you mentioned your high school coach, which happened to be Dave Evans, who took a chance and started you and Wes as freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did Chad play JV as a freshman?
He started that route, and then by the end of
Okay.
the year, he was full-time varsity.
Okay, so
He played the majority of the games when we got in the tournament.
kind of give us an idea. So Dave, just when did he get the Lincolnview job as opposed to when you guys got in high school? And what type of guy was he as a coach? What type of coach was he?
So when I was a kid, there was a guy by the name of Rick Regal. And again, Rick was very active in the youth program. They didn't win a lot of games, but as a kid, I say this, you kind of thought he was Phil Jackson, like you wanted to play for him because it was the high school coach. So my seventh grade year, he was just my school teacher. And in eighth grade, Dave Evans comes in. And, that was his first year at Lincolnview. And Lincolnview hadn't been out of the sectionals in 17 years. And that was his first year there that we got out of there. And then, playing for him or just knowing him, he was so open from the first time I met him. Obviously he was going to our junior high games, but even taking it a step further, like being in eighth grade when he was the coach, if we didn't have practice and I was at the gym because I just kind of hanging around him, he'd let me do shooting drills and ball handling stuff, and had me involved early. He didn't have to do that, right? Obviously, knew someday I was going to play for him, but again, to do that for a kid like that, most coaches probably wouldn't.
So was Dave a head coach anywhere before he came to Lincolnview?
So he coached Antwerp girls.
Okay.
Had some success over there. I think he had one other job, if I can remember right, but that's the one that comes to mind.
And he spent probably 16, 17 years as Lincolnview's head coach.
I believe so. I think it's somewhere around there.
Yeah. So, and then I'm not sure. Is he still the AD at Elida?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I think he has a couple years left. He's going to hang it up.
So, Coach Dave Evans inherits a really good group of guys. He plays you early on. You guys go 13-10 as freshmen. And then as sophomores, you guys go 18-5. And sophomore year ends with kind of a stinging loss to Ottoville. And I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, again, I still, when people talk about, your career and things in the past, it's still probably one of my worst losses I've ever had. Won a bunch of games in my life. I've lost, a bunch as well. And because, again, I remember just, where the end goal was obviously, to get to state, but that was the year that Liberty Benton was really darn good. And everybody's kind of comparing us early in the season, right? We had a good season, 18-5, but that game was one we won by 25 in the regular season at their place, right? So district finals, when you beat a team like that, you're expected to win. And again, even this, we should have won. But again, they outplayed us. They made shots, we didn't, and we had turnovers at times that we shouldn't have. And that's how it goes. I had a shot at the buzzer and didn't fall. and then I got stamped by their crowd. But again, it was a bad loss, but it was also, you never want to take, say there was some good from it because of the motivation that we had. When you talk to Brunswick about the same thing when they got the loss at St. Henry, was we kind of had a bond like this. This feeling, I hate it. I hate it so much. I hated losing so much, and to lose the way we did, especially expecting to win, it hurt a little bit more. And you feel as one of the better players on the team that you let them down a little bit, and that's not the case, but it's just that's the feeling I had. And I think everybody had that same feeling, right? It wasn't just me. I think everybody knew their role and they tried to do it, and we just came short. And in the locker room, it was just a really somber time. They rode the bus back. We all went back to Chad Pollock's house. I'll never forget it. And we were all just there. My guys, the guys that I graduated with, and it stunk. But it was also that bonding time because that's who we were. We're best friends, and it was just again, we're not going to let this happen again. Whatever it's going to take, I'm going to put the work in. But I knew what I was going to do, but I also knew that they were going to do the same thing. And there's something to be said for that. The roles that everybody played. That's the reason that we were as good as we were as we continued on to our junior and senior year.
Yeah, I think, and I really hear what you're saying. And I don't want to sound like the old guy, get off my lawn type of guy, but I'm not so sure that kids truly hate losing in today's game. They maybe pay it lip service, but are you showing me that you really hate losing? After you lose, what are you doing? What is going to come of that afterwards? And a lot of times, I hear kids say they don't like to lose, but what did you do after that to prove that you cannot stand losing?
So again, I had a really good work ethic, as did the other guys, right? And it just step. Again, not to think that you can't do more, you always can. And we were on the we'd go to the YMCA on Friday nights, right? Everybody else is going to the movies or hanging out. Like that's what we did. We'd go up there and play 3-on-3 until they closed the doors. My dad was the commander at the VFW across the street. So after we're done, walk over there, get some chips and a pop, and be done. But that was every Friday. And then on Sundays, Coach Evans would call us. He'd be doing laundry, and he'd come pick me up when I didn't have my license, bring me to the gym, so we could, and it wasn't just me. So Wes's dad would bring him over. Chad's dad would bring him over. If Chad's dad didn't pick me up, that was just what we did. That was just part of, we didn't know any different because we wanted to. Everybody wanted to be better, and everybody took the commitment to do that. And that's why it wasn't just me as an individual. It was everybody did it. So it was, again, it goes back to what I was saying before, a big reason for our success.
You mentioned Chad's dad, and he played at Lincolnview.
Yep.
And he was forced into a tough role as a single parent earlier than expected, obviously. I don't know how much you want to say about it, but if you could just mention or talk about Chad's the tragedy that struck his family early in his high school career.
Yeah, so it was awful. It still even gives me a stomachache to think about it now. Going into it, we had just started school. It was actually before basketball season, and his mom and twin sisters ended up getting in a car accident and losing their lives. And I was really close with their family, as was everybody. You're talking a small town. Like his mom was my second grade teacher. His sisters at the time were twins in fifth grade. And the thought of losing that, it was the first time I'd ever faced really death and tragedy in my life. And it's how you respond to that. I was more in a consoling manner to how can I put my arms around Chad, as everybody was. We were all at his house and hugging and just crying, and you want to. You can't change it. You don't know. You don't know really how to act. I think for me it was so personal because we were all so close, and there's nothing you can do to change it. Right? You could be there for him. You could talk to him. It was tough. It really was tough. And Chad's dad. It was he was a farmer, and now he's a single dad, and we're again as close as we were. It just it was really hard on Chad. And again, I know that he struggled with it, and we all did, but I can't even put into words how much I felt bad for him to try to have to deal with that, right? You're coming into your high school years, his mom was a big advocate for basketball. His sisters were athletic, and to not have her sitting with her dad in the the seats that they had for years, right? They had season tickets, and there's she's not sitting there. And I think that would be it was really hard for him to see that, right? So fortunate to have his dad there, but not have his mom, right there as well. So very, very tough, very, very tough. But again, it was we just wanted to be there for him. Everybody did. It was, I think, our bond did continue to get stronger because everybody's thinking more about him than they are themselves, and that's just how our team was, and everything that we could do to help him. And he was, resilient, and I just. To deal with that, I still can't imagine. And again, I know it's still hard on him, but we got through it and still getting through it somewhat. And he ended up, like I said, he was, he didn't show it a lot. And again, I don't know what the right emotion is to say he shows it, right? And so anyway, I'm very, very unfortunate. I wish we didn't have to deal with it, but it was tough. It was really tough.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, losing one family member, but when you lose three all at once
Yeah.
and unexpectedly, it's tough to lose anybody, but if it's somebody that's, lived a good long life, 85, 90, that's a different situation, but boy, I can't imagine as a young kid going, adolescence and just so impressionable years and
Yeah.
great to have a group of guys like he did around him, and you guys, as you talked about that Ottoville game, you guys did move on, and I just want to mention the state tournament games as juniors because I think that is a big part of the story as we talk about the state championship season. And you mentioned Liberty Benton. And I talked to probably around this time last year. I talked to AJ Granger about that season. And interesting enough, 3 straight years, Liberty Benton, Springfield Catholic Central, and you guys all lost to the eventual champion before winning it the following season. You and Springfield Catholic Central both lost in the finals in consecutive years and then come back and win the state championship. So that was really cool. A lot of similarities in those 3 years. But I think the story of the 96 season kind of was told in that semifinal game where you played Dalton. You beat them 83-73. You guys start out, that was a foul fest, 42 fouls in the game, 50 free throws. But the big story I think in this game was not the final outcome, was the fact that you and Wes did not come out of this game unscathed.
Right. So the first half went really well. Everybody's excited, playing well. I remember playing very well. And again, start of the third quarter, I remember they had a really good player named Ryan Berg who ended up going on to Toledo, his first team All-State. He was guarding me on the sideline, so I kind of put the ball over my head. He tried to go up and steal it. Ended up going through my right eye with his fingernail. I had a laceration over it. And, again, at first, I could feel blood, and I started to feel pain. And then I got kind of dizzy, and I felt, something was wrong. And I'm trying to shake it off. I just couldn't. It hurt so bad. So I literally went down to the locker room to let our trainer take a look at it. And I'm laying on kind of one of those, just a bench that you would get your ankles taped on. And they're trying to evaluate me and what to do. I knew that I couldn't go back out there and play. So I ended up calling an EMS to come get me. In the meantime, I look over, and Wes is laying on another one. And because he just gets an elbow, he gets a concussion. And I'm thinking, oh, my golly. First of all, my first thing was like, I'm thinking, who's going to bring it up the court? God loves Scott Kemmler. He's a good buddy of mine. But I'm thinking, if they're pressing him, we're in deep trouble. And I'm thinking, who else is going to score the ball, right? You're thinking, we're our 2 leading scorers, all-state players, and we're expected to, to score a majority of it. And again, I think it's just a testament, like we talked about before in the roles. We had a senior in Sean Thatcher who comes out and goes 6 for 6 from 3, scores 20 points in the game, I think. And, that's just a testament to our team. But ultimately, I remember being in the hospital, and their trainer ended up coming over. His name's Jeff Snyder, who's actually the superintendent at Lincolnview now. He was a trainer at Defiance College when I was playing. And he says, you guys won. I was like, because I mean, you're hoping that, and you feel like your guys can take care of business. But again, I was kind of, like I hate that I'm not there to help them, but I was so relieved. And now I'm thinking, okay, doc, just patch me up, get me better so I can play tomorrow. So going back to the hotel, I remember, Wes was my roommate, and it's like the Wounded Warriors here. I'm looking over him. They had to come in every 20 minutes to check him out for, from a concussion standpoint. And we just kind of laughed. I mean, I'm kind of looking over him. He's blurry because I can't hardly see him. I'm thinking, we got to play a game tomorrow. We're going to be able to. And again, the thought was we would always play. I never doubted I would, but I mean, I had to get cleared the next day. I remember going to the gym first thing in the morning with the coaching staff, and I had to have the doctors, the high stakes physician crew, evaluate me. So they gave me these Oakley glasses and put me through just some routine drills. So I had to dribble up and down with both hands. I had to shoot right and left-handed like Mike and drill layups, and I had to shoot some free throws. And they said, yep, he can play. And I'm thinking, man, I can do this stuff blindfolded, right? I mean, I've done it enough. Like, this is probably the best evaluation, but at least I get to play. So yeah, that's kind of the process going into the state championship.
Yeah, you got 3,300 plus points laying on hospital beds. the outlook's not looking great. Despite that, you guys did have the really good first half. You ended up with 18 points, 10 assists. Wes had 14, and then Chad Pollock had 17. You were 19 of 24 in the first half. Again, you refer to the strong start. They had a couple of, as you referred to, Ryan Berg, who was a first-team All-Stater, ended up with 17. Yep. And then Randy Ensley was a second-team All-Stater, and he ended up with 36. But Berg was just 4 of 17 shooting the ball, so it wasn't like and that wasn't a real efficient outing for him. But you were able to escape them, as you said, and you would get an even taller task, I would say, in the finals. Even though you come in at 1, you guys are 26-0 now, and you got Springfield Catholic Central, who's number 2, ratings-wise. And, they're a team that has state tournament experience. They finished runner-up to Liberty Benton the year before. They've got Mr. Basketball. They got Jason Collier, a 7-footer who was going to Indiana. An incredible athlete in Jason Ronay, who I think ended up going and playing Division I baseball.
I believe so too.
And John Powell, who was another really good player on that team. So you're playing them, going in, playing them full strength would be difficult enough, but you've got one eye. And Wes probably doesn't know what day it is, and you're going to go to battle with this team, and you did. You're winning this game by 3 points with 4:37 to go in the third, and the wheels kind of fall off from that point on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I remember. Obviously, being able to play was one thing, but then physically, being to do it at the level that you want to, that you've done all year, you're kind of, when I was warming up, I was thinking about that. And the issue I had personally was, it was my right eye that had the laceration over, and I have astigmatism on my left one. So even though I could see a little bit out of my eye if I closed my left eye, the ball being on my left side, the equilibrium on it, I could not shoot it straight. So I literally had to close my right eye when I shot, to shoot with a blurry astigmatism, but again, I had a good idea where the rim was. It wasn't clear. So I remember literally the first possession of the game, I remember closing my eye and throwing up a deep one. It just went right through. And I'm thinking, whenever I talked to Coach Evans, I'm like, Coach, I really didn't see it. He was like, well, just keep not seeing it then. It was just crazy of events to have to do that. But again, I think it's actually kind of just the practice you put in, and say it's lucky, but yeah, I was very fortunate. But to your point earlier, we got up, and again, with just Wes ended up going out. He couldn't go anymore. We had some depth behind him, but nowhere near the skill of Wes. He was just a huge, great teammate, and just a really good basketball player. Obviously, went to all Malone and had a great career. And they started to chip away at us, and we just really couldn't stop the bleeding. They got up. There wasn't much that we could do. And I tell a lot of people this. I even hate saying. I mean, I think even to your point, with being healthy, it would have been tough. But you know, they were a really good team, probably a better team than us that year. But coming up short, that was a tough feeling. There was a similar feeling to the Ottoville loss. A little different from the fact that you got all the way to the state, championship, and knowing I had another year left. So there was a little bit of that feeling. Still hated it and felt awful, but it was knowing I had another year left was what kind of motivated us for that next coming year.
Yeah, so if I could kind of paint the picture here. So you're playing a state tournament game. You have a guy in Wes that has 1,500 plus points, and he doesn't play past halftime. You're playing with one eye, and you have 1,800 plus points in your career, and you're 5 for 9 from three in this game, finished with 21 points. You're playing with the signature goggles that everybody talked about afterwards. I think you can find those on eBay somewhere now.
Well, I wish I could. Yeah. I'd pay a nice dollar for those.
And, but you mentioned you're up by 3, midway through the third, and then they go on a 21-2 run where Collier has 10 of his 22 points in that run, and then John Powell has 8 of his 16 in that run. Overall, it's a 38-12 run to end the game. They closed like state champions that they were, and they closed like a team that had been there before and had something very similar happen to them the previous year when Andy Butler and those guys took care of Springfield Catholic Central the year before. Jason Ronay ended up with 18. Wes is a guy, he only ends up with 8 points, playing a half. That's obviously a huge loss, and but you learned from it. You used it. You finished 26-1. You come back. You lose Thatcher to graduation. He has the great semifinal game for you guys, and kind of set the stage here in 96, 97, just to how dominant you guys were. You averaged 83 points a game in a regular season. You only gave up 51.5. You were 20-0, number one in the state again. You averaged 10 points, or 20 points, close to 11 assists. You finished as all-time leading scorer and still are at the school at 18-21. Wes averaged about 16-8, ended up with 1,507 career points. Chad Pollock went over 1,000, and we'll talk about when he did that. He averaged about 14-7. And then Kyle Rabe, a kid that came over after his sophomore year from LCC, he averaged about 9. And then Frankie Kill averaged about 9 points and 6 rebounds. So you had 5 guys that averaged nearly 10 points a game. And, I know teams that have guys that have 3,000-point scores, but they weren't all in the same class. And that is absolutely – I was talking to a guy last night from Bel Air, Ohio, and they had 3 guys that had 1,000, but all 3 guys were in a different class. You had 3 one with 1,800, one with 1,500, and one just over 1,000, all in the same 1997 class. You ever think about how crazy that is?
I mean, it's obviously, it is crazy, right? I mean, to think about it, because it's, at the time you don't. I mean, as you get older, you think to have people like yourself that have been around to see it, and, it's just not common. I'd be interested to see how many teams actually have that. It's also a testament to where we were, as freshmen coming through to be able to play. I mean, I played in 100 games. We're 84-16 through high school. So again, I think that's, part of it as well. And again, just everybody being able to play so young. And having the success that we had. So yeah, it is remarkable that that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't you guys get Frank a couple more shots? I mean, get him.
About Frank, definitely, you would think looking for that position, he was very talented, and he just played his role to the fullest. He was a defender. He was tough. He rebound. He get a rebound. He's on the break. He's throwing it to me, and he's running like crazy to get it back. He's athletic. I mean, he had some dunks. It was just. He was that kind of energizer bunny, but again, just played his role perfectly. Never, it was griped. He wasn't a cancer. He'd be easily on every other team in the Northwest Conference. He would have been probably a leading scorer for some. So again, it's just a testament to Frank, and it's also a testament, I think, to our team that we talked about earlier. That we are so close. Everybody's roles were identified, and again, not that your roles can't change with circumstance. Compared to my junior year, that guy stepped up, but it's just that's when we were going. That's what it was, and even roles changed game to game. Guys weren't going. Frankie had some really good games. Obviously, we'll talk about that as the state, as the journey goes. But yeah, it was Frank definitely could have scored more points.
Yeah, I think that this is, we talk about all the points scored and all those things that you guys did, but the bottom line is you were undefeated. You didn't lose any games, and you guys really enjoyed playing with each other. And when nobody cares about who's getting the headlines in the newspaper, I mean, you got something special, because you guys were talented, but that doesn't always equal wins. And when you look at your team, I mean, you had a bunch of guys that liked each other, hung out together. And, and another thing about you guys were big. And some of these are program heights, but I mean, you're looking at Chad at 6'7", Wes at 6'6", Kyle 6'5", Frank 6'4", and what would you be, about 6'2", 6'1"?
6 foot, 6'1", maybe around there.
Program height 6'1".
Yeah.
Depending
on what program you're in.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you guys weren't a small team, and you mentioned if Frank goes on and scores over 1,000 points at Defiance College. So I mean, that just kind of shows you what type of depth of talent you guys had. And Wes played at Malone. Was he All-American at Malone? Or All-Conference guy at Malone?
I'm not sure for a fact.
Yeah.
Not sure.
And then Chad played both sports at Ohio Northern, football and basketball.
Which is surprising in itself. It kind of just shows a testament to Chad and his athleticism, because Lincolnview didn't have football. Still the only team in the Northwest Conference doesn't have it. So he never played a snap in his life. Plays 1 year of basketball, and then he was a phenomenal offensive lineman, which doesn't surprise me, but that he was really good. But just the fact that he's never played before, have that kind of success, testament to him.
Yeah, so we'll talk just briefly about your regular season that year, 20-0. Your closest games, you had two 11-point games. One was against Parkway, 83-72. And then another one, you guys stepped up and played a Division II Elida team that actually won the WBL that year. Western Buckeye League, for those of you that may not be as familiar, but that's a really, really good conference. And then you beat LCC 63-51 by 12, and those were your closest games. You didn't have a game under double figures all season.
Right.
I'm sure that game at Elida that you played them.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, that's a big step up for a D4 team to go play a D2 WBL champ. We just saw a D2 team in Lima Shawnee out of that same conference go to state, a D3 OG. Also at state this past year out of the WBL. That's a loaded conference. So you guys were stepping up big time there.
Yeah, I think that probably was circled on both of our calendars, right? Because and then they ended up, we were expected. I think they were expected too. I mean, we grew up playing against some of those kids. But at the time, we were 18-0. We played Delphus Jefferson the night before, and they were, I think, 17-1. So I just remember the memory I had with that, obviously the night I met my wife, but when our bus pulled up, I mean, there was a line. It was unbelievable how many people. I mean, I know there was people that had to be turned away. I mean, we sold that place out. It was nuts in there. Reminding me of that, we had a lot of really good crowds. Our fan, our support, our communities were awesome. But that game was it was a different. I mean, there was just a feeling in there of just this energy that was, second to none for sure. But yeah, they were good. We got off to a little bit of a struggle, but ended up, playing the way we needed to play and come out with a victory. Obviously, Chris Adams was a great coach.
Mm-hmm.
They had some really good stuff, changed up their defense a little bit, and they had some good players too. It was a really good team.
So moving on to the sectional, one-game sectional there, you guys beat Fort Jennings 81-58. You had 26, 6 threes, Wes with 22, and Chad Pollock with 17 to open up the tournament play. Nice to get your feet wet there and get rolling to get ready for a very tough Elida district where you would play a team you played in the regular season, which was Upper Scioto Valley, who wasn't too far removed, just 3 years from winning the '94 state title. You beat them 100-66 in the regular season. Talk to me about this game just a little bit. You know, it was a 68-60 final, but these games aren't always as close as the final score indicates. But
yeah, I mean, again, they ended up coming back towards the end. Again, from my memory, it wasn't as close as that score. We were up high teens, and they hit a couple shots. Randy Evans hit a couple shots late. The game was out of reach, and I mean, again, still a win's a win. I don't care if we won by 20 or won by 1. I just, we played a little bit better than the score says.
So you get by the Rams, and again, this is the Elida district, which is always a very tough district, whether it's Division III, whether it's Division IV up in Northwest Ohio. Just so many good teams up in those areas, and that hasn't changed in the last 24 years. So you play a team in Delphos St. John's in the district final. This game was a very, very tough game. A game you trailed by a deuce midway through the fourth quarter. Delphos St. John's team coached by a young Brett Norris, who is now at Hilliard Bradley. And this was a game, some years later, Chad Pollock would say that he didn't want to come across as arrogant, but it was the only game that he recalls that there was any doubt of the outcome. And he said that in the Van Wert Independent back in 2017. So he definitely recalled this being a tough battle.
I mean, it was. Yeah, it was. I mean, again, you expected to win every game. We expected not only to win, but just blow everybody out. That was kind of our mentality. And Brett Norris had a great game plan. They slowed it down. I mean, they literally pulled it out, and it played as methodical as you could possibly think. As a team that's used to getting up and getting down, as far as scoring 83 points a game, literally they took that away from us. And for us, when a team does that, and they hit a couple shots early, they got to the free throw line, they got up, and they could continue to do it. If we would have got the lead early, we could have forced them out of that. And they controlled it by how the game was going. So they really, really played, methodical, deliberate, didn't take any bad shots. And that was kind of the game, how it was going until the fourth quarter. And again, remember that 2-point game you're talking about. That's when Wes got a drive and ended up getting an and one. And that's our first lead. I can still see Wes's face. Everybody was ecstatic. And that was the time. As soon as he hit the free throw, I had no doubt in my mind that we were going to win.
It's crazy when you play a team that is well schooled like that. It's like you can never get the tempo against those teams, and you always end up having to, fight it out and win a game maybe a way that you're not accustomed to playing. Especially a team like yours that was averaging 83 points a game, playing that style.
Honestly, Kurt, that was probably the first time I would say in the 3 years anybody dictated the tempo outside of us, right? It was rebound go. Nobody could really, or even tried for that matter. There weren't a lot of teams that played and did that. They really pulled it out. Gavin Seaver was holding the ball. Literally they were throwing it around. But that was probably the first time that we even experienced that kind of deliberate basketball where it was almost the four corners. Then they would go a little bit and see if they got an opening. But yeah, we dictated the pace, majority of my career. So that was probably, the biggest surprise for us is we never experienced it before.
I'm sure the hype and the crowd for this was pretty electric, being that Delphos is so close to your school.
Yeah, it was. Again, both teams' colors are blue and gold. So, it was just, Phil, similar to that Elida game. Obviously, Delphos travels, the communities travel just like Middle Point and Lincolnview travels. All the communities in Northwest Ohio, it is amazing how they support their teams. And this was no different that night. It was packed house. It was sold out in there. And again, there's nothing better. People understand to be able to play, again, this last year was tough because of COVID, but be able to play in a packed house where, the other team's booing you and your team is cheering you like crazy. There was nothing like I can't even, I wish all kids get to play in a sold out, crowd. And that was just another one that was just, it was, I used that term before, just electric. I mean, it was, again, at the end, you're trying to pull it off and you're not even hearing the crowd, so to speak. But yeah, it was a great environment.
So you escape the Elida District, the vaunted Elida District, and you move on to the Toledo Regional, where you would play Macomb in the first round up there out of the Blanchard Valley Conference, and you blew the doors off of these guys. It was 27-11, ends up 81-51. You had 29, Wes 23, and Kyle and Chad each had 11. You weren't taking any prisoners in this game.
Yeah, I think that was, it's kind of horses in the stable ready to go, right? After coming to that St. John's game, it's kind of like, listen, because Coach Evans probably thinking like the other teams are going to do exactly that, right? I mean, is that the secret sauce? I mean, I'm guessing but a lot of teams weren't capable, right? They had Delphus kind of going back to that. They had, an Aaron Elwer, Gavin Seaver. They had another Elwer, I believe, a Klaus. I mean, they were good players, right? They were capable of, executing that plan. So not every team was capable of doing that. So I think when we got to Macomb, it was, let's go. We're going to get out early, and that's exactly what we did.
So you move on, and you're in the regional final now against Leipzig, and you defeat them 69-62, but this is a game you only led by 3 at half. You pushed the lead, though, up to around 16 or 17, and then they come back and make this game a little bit too close for comfort.
Yeah, so I remember this as far as we ended up getting up to, I think, 16, 17-point lead. And I remember this is that point with my junior year when you're so excited to get to state. You're expected to get back as seniors and win it. And you never want to say you're playing to lose, but I remember being out on the top, kind of looking at that clock, dribbling a little bit more than I normally would, not running much offense, just letting that clock tick. We ended up missing some shots, had some turnovers. They made some plays, and they had Nick Breinbrink that was a good player, Bryce Schrader, who was a phenomenal point guard, great baseball player too. So again, they had really good players. Just I remember that was probably the only game in my career I remember. Let's just get back to state. Let's just get back there. Let's get back there. Let's do everything we can to win this game and move on. So that was, I think, a little bit part of it as far as just me dribbling around a little bit. But we got the W, which is, like I said before, that's all that mattered.
So you finished this game with 22 points. Chad has 18 and Kyle Rabe with 12. And now you're going to move on and play in the big show one more time, one final time. You're going to St. John Arena, the Mecca, I believe, of tournament basketball in Ohio. There will never be anything like it again. And you get to the state semifinals. And once again, your semifinal game is a sellout, 13,276. You had a sellout against Dalton the year before, but this time you're playing Norwalk St. Paul, Coach Mike Smith. And, there was a lot of hype around your team. This was my first state tournament as a viewer. And I just remember so many people telling me about your team because they had seen you in '96. Yeah. They were so pumped to see you again. You guys scored all these points. You were knocking threes down. You had great vision. You were a lefty. I think that enamored people. And you just blow the doors off of St. Paul in this semifinal game, 88-49, despite only shooting 39%, but you did make 34 out of 44 at the free throw line. And Coach Smith from St. Paul said this after the game. He said, "They are unbelievable. I don't think I've seen a team play quite like that, like the way they played tonight. They played like they were a team on a mission."
Yeah, I think that was just, it just goes back to who we were, right? I mean, you have some games, you're going to win by a bunch, you're not, again. And this was when I remember when we were practicing that week, there was an article in their local paper and their coach, and rightfully so, said, we're not going to back down. I don't care how good they are, we're going to run with them. And I just remember that being plaqued on each one of our lockers. Like, this team thinks that they can play with us. And again, Coach Smith, that's exactly what I probably would have said. And but that also, we didn't need much incentive. But that was like, all right, let's get out and go. And we did. I mean, literally, we were out in transition and got up big early. I mean, halftime, I think we might have been up close to 30 at half. I don't know. It was pretty ugly. And and again, that's going into halftime knowing you're already going to win the game. That was different. I mean, when you're in a state, people are here sold out. It was just, we were, like I say, fortunate, but just that was who we were. I mean, we were out there to whip them. That's exactly what we did that night.
Yeah, so you had 12 points, 5 assists in this game, some light work. Chad Pollock had 20 points, 11 rebounds. He also topped the 1,000-point mark in this game,
Yeah.
which was really cool, joining you and Wes in that club. And then Wes had 17.7 rebounds. Frank had 12 points and 12 rebounds, which would be a precursor
Yeah.
to what was to come in the finals for him. So it was a really good day for you guys. A good kind of tune up to play in the state championship again. So you're going to move on and you're going to get a team out of Zanesville, Bishop Rosecrans High School. So we got another number 1 versus number 2 battle this year. You play this game in front of 13,229. People there were exhausted. I remember that championship Saturday. You had Zanesville and Cleveland Heights that played an overtime thriller that year. But was there a part of you that was hoping that you were going to, because Springfield Catholic Central miraculously made it back to the Final Four that year without Collier, without Powell, without Ronay. Was there a part of you that was hoping that they were going to win that game?
Oh, there isn't even a question. Right? Like, I was mad when they didn't, because believe me, there was a part of me that wanted to throttle them.
Yeah.
That would have been that would have been that's one game I would say that there was going to be some extra juice played with. And again, that's just your personality when you're,
right.
Junior, senior in high school. So, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hoping for a different outcome for the Rosecrans Springfield game.
Yeah, so you play a really good Bishop Rosecrans team that's led by Chris Garber, All-State guy. They have one loss coming into the game. They play a really tough schedule, led by head coach Todd Rock, who is still the coach there. And this is a game that you didn't take your first lead until 27 seconds to go in the half, when Frank Kill hit a free throw to make it 25-24. You led 31-30 in the third. And then we mentioned Frank having the big night, and he sparked a 13-2 run with a three-pointer that kind of gave you guys a little bit of separation in this game.
Yeah. I mean, they played us tough. Like you said, I think they played a tested schedule in that league in Columbus. And, I think that's a big part of why they had some good experience. They had some really good players. They had some young experience as well. And, again, I think as much as you want to expect from a team like ours to do what we did in the semifinals, we were playing a really good team. And, again, I think that's the duration of who we were, is just kind of, be resilient and play how we play. And eventually we did exactly what we were supposed to do, is go on a run like that. And, again, it goes back to, too, when you talk about Frankie Kittle, like, the games he had in the semifinals and the finals, I mean, those are games he would have had every night if he played elsewhere. And it was just his time, and that was exactly what he did. He grabbed it, took advantage of the moment, and, he was a big reason that we were successful in that game. I mean, but again, I wasn't surprised. I was happy for him, but I was happy for all of us, just like he was. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, look at me. It was never that. And again, that was to get the win, and again, him to play the way he did, and to get a state championship, there's nothing like it. It really is.
Yeah, he ends up with 23 points, 11 rebounds, 5 of 8 shooting, 11 of 12 from the free throw line. Just a great way to go out for him. You guys sank another 32 free throws. You made 64 in the 2 tournament games at the foul line. Chris Garber and Scott Payton both had 4 fouls in the third quarter. Garber only ended up with 6 points and 5 rebounds. Wes did a really good job on him. Um, I want to read you a couple of these quotes from the Rosecrans guys that kind of gives you an idea of what they thought about your team. Uh, Garber said, Lincolnview is a good team. If we put the two best teams together in our league, which is saying something, we might have a chance. They're just so quick and so strong. And that was from the great Steve Blackledge from the Columbus Dispatch back on March 23rd, 1997. Steve now with Press Pros magazine. And then Todd Rock said they've got everything. They can run, they can shoot, they can rebound. They're just tough to guard. And I think that would be, if I'm thinking back to your team, that was probably the thing that jumped out to me. You guys were just so tough to guard because you just never knew. It wasn't like you could key on one guy because there were so many guys that could beat you. I mean, Frank gets 23 and 11 in the
Yeah.
finals. That could have very well easily been anybody in your starting lineup.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to Coach Evans as well. Obviously, we were big, athletic, and I think the hardest thing people understand is to guard pace. We played really fast. So, I mean, we get a rebound, we had size, it's gone, and we're out. The big guys are running, we're filling lanes, and we're shooting layups. That's how we wanted to play. We didn't want to run no offense, but we also, when we needed to get to half court, we ran really good stuff. And when you have a post presence and obviously people that can shoot, it's really, like you said, tough to guard. So I think that's a big part of it. Like I said, I think you can look at our team, but it was a lot more, I'd say, athletic. You maybe want to give credit for. And I think again, even kind of thinking about like college days too. This is the pace that I know that I want to play fast. I mean, I couldn't play fast enough. And that was when I played best. So did everybody else. And so, I think he was right on the nose when you talk about our team. I think it's hard to scout for, but they were a really good team as well. And again, it's humbling for them to say if they put two of their best teams, that they might be able to give us a shot. Again, that's pretty cool. Actually, I mean, to be that thought highly of by a lot of people, right? Not just him and around the state, and especially in our community, it's special. We had a very special team, Kurt, that I'm so proud of. And it's like when I say you can't put into words, when you have a community like we do and do back in Northwest Ohio, the Middle Point, Vanward, and surrounding, that is so supportive. Like I said, be able to tip your hat to them and be able to drive the bus home on a charter bus, which I've never been on in my life, have fire trucks and people roller skates going down Middle Point, like it was, it just I can't even describe it how cool it was. And it even gets better as you get older when you think back of at the time it's pretty cool, but as I get older, I'm just you want everybody to be able to experience that.
Yeah.
And in the small towns they do, right? I mean, communities when they go and they win, I mean, whether it's Parkway, Columbus Grove, OG, they all travel. And again, there's just something to be said for that.
Yeah, Rosecrans got within 50 to 44, but that was as close as we could get. You end up winning this game 76-60. Jason Peck led. Rosecrans with 17, and sophomore Joe Bills, who would go on to have a nice college career, with 16 points. And so take me through the final moments of this game where you start to realize all this work that we've put in is about to come down to this.
So I think the first moment when you see that, you look over at the scores table and you see five guys coming in, right? The starters are coming out, and I don't remember if Coach did it, kind of staggered it, but I'm pretty sure he had all the guys. We all came out together. And that was the first moment you realize that's when that kind of warmth and just that euphoria. And then I remember the first thing that I did is grab Coach Evans and, we hugged like it was such a great feeling because we had been through so much together. He had been so good to me, giving me the ball as a freshman and, the goods and the bads, holding you accountable, responsible, and helping making me the, young man that I was at that time. I was so happy that, he got to experience that as well. And that we all got to do it together. And I think that's that moment. Again, most people don't get to feel that, I mean, being a state champion is rare. I mean, some schools don't have any, some schools are fortunate to have multiple ones, but, that's Lincolnview's fortunate to be down there twice ever, back in 2016 as well. So, Again, it was awesome. Again, I just remember everybody being so happy. We all hugging each other, and then piling up afterwards when the buzzer goes off. I mean, that was nothing better than that. To be able to do that with your buddies.
Yeah, it was so cool. 2016, Lincolnview got there to the finals. Frank Kill gets there and wins it at LCC. Your team gets honored, and I think when you look back on your team, people just look back with so many fond memories. People. This is before social media and
Right.
the crazed internet and all that stuff. And it was kind of like people anticipated getting to see your team because that was going to be the only time that they would be able to see you throughout the year. And I think your style of play
Right.
enamored people. You kind of look at like some of the teams moving forward, like at Upper Sandusky. People just were enthralled with the way they played. But I
Yeah.
think that your small town team, the points that you scored, people just fell in love with that. Because there was always kind of this blueprint to win. You got to go up and you can't make mistakes and you got to play this style to win a state. And you guys go up
Yeah.
and rewrite history the way you're playing. And I just think people look back on that team with such great admiration and, um, 27-0, a run of 53-1 over 2 seasons, just absolutely incredible with the pressure you guys had to finish the deal. I'll let you go on this. How do you think, or how do you want this Lincolnview team to be remembered?
I mean, honestly, I think it's one of the best high school teams that Ohio's ever been around, that I've been able to see, right? I mean, I think you want to think that way with the what we did. I mean, not to be arrogant at all. I think you feel that way when I was playing. And as you get older and you're looking at teams, like, it had a little bit of everything, right? You see teams that have, hey, you got a couple of leading scorers. They have a guy that can rebound at 6'7", maybe every now and again. But to have all of that at one time at one school in the small town of Middle Point, I don't know that you'll ever see that again. And again, I say that St. Henry was very good. It's similar, but they didn't play. I mean, we played like you were saying. People wanted to watch. It was we're trying to get 100, right? It's the Loyola Marymount back in the day. A
Yeah,
little more structured, but I think that's people just loved it. And that goes back to, like I said, the communities. I mean, our biggest rival would be Crestview, but I mean, we got in the tournament when they were knocked out. All their fans were coming to watch us and support us, and that's what I think I want to be remembered. People to remember is, and I think it goes back to just sports in general, just everybody playing their role. Like, so many coaches I talk to now is, it's hard to get kids to buy in, right? The self-awareness of what
yeah,
can help their team win. And man, I can't even exaggerate enough how ours was. I mean, it was a fine old machine. Like, we didn't worry. Coach Evans didn't worry about any of that. Now, I can't say he didn't have conversations with people. We're trying to, he was, as he's defining those roles. But I think that's something, from a role standpoint and our team, I think that's what I want to remember the most. That if you want to emulate what we have, you can't have any weak links, and that's hard, right? And obviously to have the talent that we had, and again, I still very very fortunate. Again, my obviously having kids. I think my boys until a couple of years ago thought I played the trumpet in high school. I did play the saxophone for a couple of years, but anyway, it's just them to be able to see some of this, and even when we go back home, people still talk about it, remember it, and my wife kind of rolls her eyes at this point, but it's I'm just glad I was a part of it, and it's going to be memories that I'll have forever. When I'm with the guys, we don't get together as often. We're on a text string. I wish we did get together more often. When we do, it's like we were seniors in high school again. There's
yeah.
no beats missed, jokes on each other. I mean, it's your typical just good buddies, and you get older, and but we'll always have those memories together.
Yeah, I think it was such a great era of basketball. When you guys
Yeah,
came along, and to me, it was the high point. And I just think your team, and the reason I do stuff like this is I want to keep the memory alive of just how
yeah,
great that was at that time, and your community, and people like your son can hear about this, and
Yeah.
And realize that this was reality. This was actually happening. So I appreciate you coming on and doing this. The great
Absolutely.
Brandon Pardon, ladies and gentlemen, 24 years after the 27-0 season. Thank you again, Brandon.
Yeah, appreciate you, Kurt.